Welcome to the Sustain, Change and Grow podcast, where we discuss questions related to climate change and sustainable personal development with experts across different fields. I'm Dilara Salahova. I am currently working at the European Central Bank on sustainable finance topics, and I would like to emphasize that this podcast is not related to my work at the ECB. Instead, it is a part of my desire and effort to raise awareness about the importance of individual actions to address current environmental issues and to bring desired changes into one's life. In this episode, I'm happy to welcome Anastasia Kuatkhina, a founder of Maison Magenta, a company that represents and promotes slow fashion. Anastasia has some unexpected turns in her career. She did an internship at Christian Dior Haute Couture design studio in Paris, working closely with Raf Simmons. But then she had to change her career plans and start her own business after she developed chronic fatigue syndrome. What is amazing about Anastasia's business is that she's really a powerhouse. She knows and does the process of producing clothes from A to Z. Anastasia is devoted to sustainability and promotes sustainable fashion. Anastasia, a warm welcome to the Sustain, Change and Grow podcast.
Good afternoon, Dilara. Thank you for inviting me to your podcast, and I'm glad to share my story with you and your subscribers today.
And I suggest we really start from the heart of what you're doing. And as you are going yourself through the whole process of creating clothes from zero, so let's speak about this process and see how things are done unsustainably now and how it can be done in a more sustainable way.
Absolutely. So currently, when you're shopping from high street shops, you will see an abundance of clothes, and you have your standard sizes, and if they don't fit, you can have them altered, but usually it doesn't make much point to have clothes altered that do not cost much and wear off quickly. So the way unsustainable clothes are made currently is only for profit. So their focus is for the clothes to wear off as quickly as possible. And that starts from selecting the fabrics that are more translucent, for example, switching details like zips from metal to plastic so it cannot be fixed. Whereas a metal zip, for example, you can lubricate with soap and then it will work much quicker. And garments are not provided spare buttons. So if you lose some buttons from your cardigan or your shirt, you do not have something easy to replace them with. And if you're not in the fashion sphere, it's going to be hard for you to find buttons to replace to look ideal. So sometimes it's just easier for the consumer once they start shopping fast fashion. It's hard to switch away from it because the only way to fix that shirt in a way it's to give it away and buy a new one, because taking it to be fixed, the buttons will cost a few pounds, and the seamstress will take an amount, maybe from £10, to replace your shirt buttons, and it's just doesn't reflect a worthy investment for the consumer if the shirt, for example, only costs £35. Also, the way it's made, the quality, if you look at prints, they may not align, like zigzags will not align, or a flower will not cross from the front to the back properly. And the way the seams are sewn, sometimes the thread doesn't even match the color of the fabric. Like, for example, I noticed this when I am altering some clients' dresses from medium fashion brands, for example, like Hobbs. You may think it's a higher brand, but it's still a high street fast fashion brand, just a little bit more luxurious. So the difference there was the outer fabric was like fuchsia, like what I'm wearing today, but the lining was navy, but fuchsia thread was being used to sew the lining together. So when I was deconstructing the garment, I saw this detail. And that's because garment workers are pushed under time pressure to make maximum amount of garments, and they do not have time to change the thread to match the color garment, which would usually be the most basic of details for creating fabrics.
Mhm. Can
Also,
I
they are
can I just
sure.
clarify here? So you're saying that this is unsustainable in a way because they don't take into account that the ornament doesn't fit each other, right? Because they don't match it. But in this way, they also probably save some material, right? Because if they have to match perfectly the ornament, the figures, then they would have to throw some material and cut the exact piece that is needed to fit. So, and in a way, this process of perfect matching may be even less sustainable, isn't it?
This is about color thread matching. So if you look at the seams, they should not be noticeably sewn. So that's the first kind of point of haute couture, how I was trained, is your fabric should be seamless and you shouldn't notice any stitching on it. So when you're using a contrast thread, like fuchsia on navy, and you see it going not even completely aligning 1 centimeter from the edge as this was, it just looks untidy. And
Mm-hmm.
the other reason it's unsustainable, it's because it's a surplus production. You will always have sales at high street shops, and you will also have sales at designer shops because even luxury has gone towards a fast fashion production, and the sale is an instigator that they do not calculate precisely how many garments they think they need to make, how what the demand is, and then reaping the earth of more materials than they need because they will not sell that amount. So that's the big problem about fast fashion production, is taking more than you need, starting from the farmers, pushing them for higher demands of cotton, for example, but then a lot of that cotton, maybe like 25%, is wasted. So those t-shirts, those jersey dresses, they're not sold, and it costs more to keep those garments on the shop floor than it is to throw away into landfill, which we see happening everywhere on the news. Like in Mexico, there's a whole valley of just clothes piling. And
Mm-hmm.
no matter how much they say we can recycle the clothes, to recycle a fabric, it has to be 100% of one type of fabric. So often you have a blend of 60% cotton, 40% polyester for a knitted jumper. That cannot be recycled because how do you pull apart the yarn where the 60% cotton, 40% polyester is? It's not possible. So actually, a lot of the clothes that are given to recycle are currently not recycled. They're taken, they're sorted, and then only the pure blends like 100% cotton, 100% silk, 100% wool, those items, 100% polyester, that can be recycled.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And can you explain a little bit further what you mean by blended materials? Like, for example, if I have a dress and part of it, let's say the top is silk and the bottom is polyester, is it considered to be blended material? Or you mean like blended when they are inseparable? And in the first case, is it considered to be recyclable or not?
So blended means the fabric is already woven with two or more different types of materials. So if your top is silk and the bottom is polyester, there are two separate materials. But if you look at the clothes label, it will say if your
Mhm.
top is a silk, it will say 100% silk. However, if your top is imitation silk, like polyamide usually is, it will say 100% polyamide, 100% polyester. Or sometimes, if they want to add a luxurious touch to your clothes, they will say like 80% polyester, 20% silk. When you see there's a breakdown and it's not 100%, that's when it's a blend. When they write the top is 100% silk, the lining is 100% polyester, those are 100% one fabric, and those are easier to recycle if a factory can recycle them. So quite often it's a bit strange, but you can buy a silk dress, natural silk, but the lining is polyester in fast fashion because it's much cheaper. But usually for skin, it's better to have a natural material touching your skin. So there's a big difference between fast fashion and conscious fashion. That, for example, at Maison Magenta, I try to only use 100% natural silk to make your body breathe, and it's lighter to wear and more comfortable in general.
Mm-hmm. And what is the fast fashion? Is there a way we can define it?
Yeah, I mean, fast fashion is basically design, manufacturer, marketing method focused on rapidly producing high volumes of clothing, maximum profit, and usually it's a lot of overproduction at the lowest possible quality, and often it's replicating designer clothes that are trending right now, so there's nothing original about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think what you mentioned about not being able to recycle it in a way, or let's say upcycle. So if there is a problem with the button or with the zip, so you can't replace it. So this fast fashion in a way makes clothes one time wearing, right? Because you can't reuse it for later. And
Absolutely.
okay, yeah. And so in a way, the whole fashion works now, which is mostly fast fashion, is that the trends change very often. So people are constantly encouraged to use and to buy new clothes and wear them once or twice, and then buy new ones and new ones. Right. So that's kind of the philosophy of the current fashion, is to change your clothes
Yeah.
as often as possible.
Yes, they've kind of tried to shame you if you're seen in the same garment more than once, and by reproducing other designer clothes as quickly as every week to introduce new collections into the store, they are choosing cheaper fabrics, which are usually made from crude oil like acrylic, nylon, polyester, to give you a copy of the designer garment. Really, you can look at it like this, like, markets used to sell fake designer bags. You can buy a fake Chanel, a fake Gucci. In a way, what high street has done is globally spread copying designer clothes and selling them for profit, and making it acceptable to wear fake designer clothes. That's kind of the bottom line of it.
Yeah, well, personally, I don't see any problems with this of copying the design clothes and using and selling them cheaper, because very often I even won't really know why I should pay so much for the designer's clothes. So I don't know. I don't think really it's a problem for sustainability. Well, you probably have a very different view coming from Christian Dior Haute Couture industry. But as a
Yes. I do, but I can explain why. The reason is the team spends about 6 months developing a collection that is unique to that fashion house, and a huge amount of money is spent paying that team to go to research trips, source fabric at exposition fairs, to make the patterns, to have the fittings, and also to market the final product. So it's like a company spends maybe millions of pounds developing an amazing collection, and then the high street sees it on the catwalk, copies it without spending any money for paying designers, without researching it, picking a cheaper fabric so it really doesn't portray the initial idea of comfortable wear, and then selling it. So it's just disrespectful to artists who are making this unique idea. I don't know if that's more helpful, but it's like If you go to a gallery and you want to invest to buy art, or an artist has been preparing, to showcase their paintings, and then you go outside and on the market, some guy is printing photos of the pictures he's taken in the gallery of that work and selling them to you at a huge discount price.
Yeah, well, the example is beautiful, though I don't see how it relates to sustainability. Except that maybe it's because it's cheaper. People wear it less and they worth it less, value it less, right? But otherwise, well, I understand there are many issues with the ethics and social reasons, but how for you it is related to sustainability?
Well, easy, because the way they're producing is without actually using local craftsmanship, which the designer houses usually do. So they're using garment workers where there are less regulated rules for the quality of work and the conditions. They're not paid a fair wage, and that's why these clothes are so cheap to sell. Because if they actually did all of that, for example, hired designers to pay them a budget, paid workers a fair wage, chose natural materials that are less harmful to color, for example, because dyeing is the biggest toxicant of fashion production, really, from chromium treated leather to acid dyeing denim. The dye process is the biggest polluter. So, in a way, fast fashion replicas, they will choose fabrics that are polyester, which are much harder to dye, which people get poisoning, like skin poisoning, blood poisoning from working. So there's a lot that happens behind closed doors to give you a product that is cheap, affordable, and ready. If you go to a designer house, that garment will be printed on quality silk with a dye that's less toxic because natural things are easier to dye. For example, you try to color your hair and you try to color a plastic bag with the same hair dye, is not going to dye. So from this understanding, each process is much more conscientious in a designer house because they have the budget to begin with to make those choices. And that's how the designer house was started. Fast fashion houses are started from a different outlook to get maximum profit, and it doesn't matter who they copy.
Yeah.
Or like what fabrics they choose or how much they pay their staff. Because if they paid fairly and if they use natural materials, they would have to increase the cost of the product on the shop floor by at least 10 times.
Mm-hmm. But would you say that all haute couture brands, they're sustainable?
I would say haute couture is the most sustainable way to shop because you have to invest not only money but time, and also the client has an understanding that there is a craft they're supporting. They have to wait for at least half a year for their garment to be made. It's made to their personal measurements, ensuring a good fit, because there is a big problem with returns. When you return fast fashion, it's often not resold. It's just put in the bin because the process of making sure the garment is sellable again outweighs in cost than just throwing it away. So if of course no many people can afford haute couture, but really that is the most sustainable way to shop, because you're really thinking what would you like to buy. You're thinking ahead of when you're gonna wear it. So you are thinking about the use of the garment, the longevity, and you're investing into it. And of course, the garment aftercare, you're going to take much greater care for a garment that takes so long to make.
Yeah, but do you think or do you know that people who buy these haute couture garments, they really use it more often and longer? Because I would, okay, from my outsider point of view, I would say those people have even more pressure of changing their clothes regularly and not being seen twice in the same garment.
As much as they may change their clothes more often, what happens to that garment after they no longer wish to wear it? they are often reselling that garment because it continues to be of high quality and desirable. It doesn't go down in value. Actually, those clothes remain at a high price, and often you can find resale, for example, of vintage Chanel, for example, at a higher price than when it was made. So this is another side to see those garments do not lose value. If you buy something in a fast fashion shop, as soon as you wear it, it loses value, and you can resell it on other platforms, but not for the full price and not for higher price. And it will often be not in appearance as it was when you bought it. And the person buying it, seeing the label and seeing the price, is not going to necessarily think I need to really look after this garment. You know, they might buy it for a few pounds and be like, great, I have this for a party, and then I can throw it away. So it's a totally different mindset once you start paying more for fashion.
Yeah, well, this sounds a little bit like art pieces, which don't lose value and actually gain over time. So, well, which is haute couture is probably sort of
Yes,
fashion art.
it is absolutely art, and I also don't produce biannual collections because I choose to work more as an artist, and I like to add permanent pieces to my collection that can be bought at any time, because I also don't see the relevance of designing about 30 looks to show every half a year, because nobody buys exclusively from one brand, and nobody needs 60 new items every 6 months, which is usually how much is needed to make 30
Mhm.
looks, like a top and trousers or a jacket and skirt. So, you know, it's just understanding consumer shopping habits, and also realistically understanding people want variety.
Yeah. No, this is interesting, and we will get to this. Maybe let's just summarize the what is the biggest or the environmental impact of the fashion industry.
Well, the biggest is the textile production of dyeing fabrics. So synthetic fabrics are much harder to color, like I've already touched upon, and are much more hazardous. And the problem when an item is advertised as biodegradable, okay, a fabric can break down, but it doesn't mean the chemicals disappear. They are absorbed into the ground, they are absorbed into the waterways. So, you know, when you see denim that's sandblasted, that's very hazardous because the sand is inhaled by the workers to make that distressed look of denim. Or like fake fur is colored, but it's plastic, so it's much harder to dye. So, in comparison to natural fur, so the chemical composition is just much more hazardous. Or versus buying, sorry, tan leather and chromium treated leather to give you so much color variety. Yes, that leather is durable, but at the same time, it will not biodegrade in a environmentally friendly way to the earth. It will deposit the chromium into the ground. So the problem is the treatment of textiles. That's the biggest pollution at the moment.
Mm-hmm. And what would be the other two? Like the, for example, the
The other
carbon
two,
footprint, would it be significant?
I think the other two is actually overproduction of or natural materials. So how much you take crude oil, or how much you take cotton, or how silk, for example, is collected. I'll just briefly explain,
So the
because
waste
the
of the natural resources and materials, essentially.
absolutely, it's just disrespecting the natural cycle of nature. So, using the mulberry silk as an example, you have the moth that is the mulberry silk. And used to be you have to wait for the moth to fly out as a butterfly and collect that what's left of the silk cocoon. But with the higher demand for silk, farmers don't wait for the moth to fly out. So they just collect it as soon as you have the big mulberry cocoon, and you get more silk faster but at the same time you are disrespecting nature because there's an insect in each cocoon that's being killed when you're boiling and collecting silk. And that's why now we're kind of returning to options that are more conscious, like piece silk, which goes through the traditional way of giving time to nature to bloom and then collect the leftovers. So that's the big difference. It's disrespecting the natural cycle and how much the earth can give us. Um, and yeah, like you said, the carbon footprint is the other one because of the big distance of cargo being transported. So something may grow in India, but then the fabric is transported to China to be sewn or resold, and then again transported to Europe to be assessed if they want to buy this fabric. And then this fabric rolls again from Europe are transported back to, for example, Romania, where the garments will be sewn into collection. And that collection, before it can be delivered to the shops, needs to come back to a brand in Europe to quality check, and then from there dispersed back around the world to be sold in shops. So there is a big transportation of the same mass that could be shortcut if they were producing locally.
Mhm. Okay, thank you for this. And then getting back to the discussion we had, so but now maybe giving more solutions. So, well, we know that most people cannot afford the haute couture sustainable products, fashion products. So how can we make more mass fashion sustainable?
So that's a bit of a paradigm, mass fashion and sustainable. So just separate them because that's not sustainable at all.
Well, when I said
Uh,
mass, I meant like the majority of the people, because haute couture is like for 1% of the people, of the population, but 99% of the people cannot afford it. And so they will use the fashion, which is like for masses, let's say more standard one. So, and yeah, that's what I meant.
what we personally can change to a hobby, to our shopping habits. Is that what you mean?
Well, can we make the production of the clothes, which are not haute couture, more sustainable, possibly? What we can change indeed in our own attitude to the fashion, and what maybe we can do with the clothes that we already have. So, like the whole spectrum, you pick up what you
I
can.
mean, yes, I just think you have to change your approach. First of all, is your mindset. So read about what sustainable fashion is because it covers a whole plethora of options, like you mentioned, from simply mending your clothes and also upcycling your clothes, which means adding more value to it by making design changes. But also, you can shop less, go visit your wardrobe and remind yourself what you have available. And sometimes there is something you completely forgot about that you would like to wear again. Other things in the wardrobe you may have put off fixing, you can take to the alterations to give them a new lease of life. Shopping, you can choose to shop from smaller brands that produce locally. So it's kind of stepping away from the shops that you know, the shops on the high street, and spending time reading articles that mention new fashion brands that you can shop from. And you can also go to exhibitions if you don't like reading on the internet. There's a lot of exhibitions about sustainable fashion these days, and also look for labels on the clothes you buy. Where is it made? Is it made abroad? Is it made in a country where they don't have good regulations for people's welfare, for example? Check the fabric composition. Is it made from a natural material or is it made from a crude oil material? And check the quality for yourself. If a fabric is translucent, which it quite often is on the high street, it's not going to be very durable. We've all seen people wearing leggings and we could see like the color of their underwear and the whole outline unsolicitedly because the quality of the fabric is very poor. And I'm not saying you have to spend haute couture prices either. There are many new brands that are making things in Britain now, especially post Brexit, because making things abroad has almost become the same price as making things in Britain. And I can give you some examples like Sabina, who I studied with at Central St. Martin's. She does ready to wear fashion, but she offers limited editions, and her items are made in Portugal and in Britain and in Vienna. So it's really easy traceability, for example. Or another classmate, Rahmo, he is exhibiting at the V&A at the moment, and he produces bespoke clothes for menswear. And he says he can't afford to wear his own clothes because it does cost a lot for handcrafted items to be made, but it's at a price point of bespoke, not haute couture. So there are different options. I think the main thing is you have to understand that fast fashion is underpriced and sustainable fashion is fairly priced. And if you can't afford to buy sustainable fashion, it may also be the fact that you are underpaid. Um, Employers worldwide don't want to pay their employees like a worthy wage. So it is just as relevant here about fair wages as it is abroad.
Yeah, and you touched upon two interesting things. So first is traceability, and this is a big problem in fashion, right? Because some fabric is produced somewhere, buttons are produced somewhere else, linen is produced elsewhere. So, and maybe you can develop even further, so this issue of traceability in fashion and how we can solve it, or personally.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think first of all, it's learning about what you're looking for to switch to sustainable consumption. And secondly, I am an advocate of using natural fibers because I've been brought up with family members who are allergic to wearing synthetics. So I understood from an early age that natural fibers are better than synthetics. But also, it's just testing and learning over time. It's not going to happen overnight because we have been kind of molded to this understanding that it's fine to consume so much, it's fine to throw away, um, it's fine to not pay that much, and it's just gonna take time to adjust mentally to know what you're looking for, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yes, absolutely.
And the and sorry, just touching about traceability, uh, you cannot compare fast fashion to sustainable fashion brands because it's a completely different model, and fast fashion brands are not going to be open about where their items are being made or the whole process. They can selectively share an idea, for example, oh, we're offering these t-shirts, they're organic cotton, but they would be like 1%, and the other 99% is still made the same way, like not to last, and it doesn't mean the workers are paid more, for example. So what I try to do is to educate my clients by recording Insta stories of their garments being made. So if it's from upcycling to slow fashion to bespoke, they can see each stage of the process and creation to learn just how long it takes to produce a quality item, for example. So if you look at smaller brands, they often share the process, and that's a good way to see traceability and to see a real brand making positive change versus what you're used to buying.
Yeah, I think that's very relevant to learn about how things come to our place, how clothes that we wear, how they were produced, and what materials went into it, and how much effort went into it. And I think that's super interesting and useful what you're saying about sharing the story of the clothes that you produce with your own clients. And I have a question. So there is this application, phone app, which is called Good on You. Do you have any views how helpful this is?
Yeah, I think it's really great. I mean, it's like a blog. I also read like the Good Trade, for example, online. So it's good to have an app like this so you know you get accurate news specific to sustainable brands. And I think the directory is really great as well. I had a look at how they grade brands and the way they select brands. I don't agree with the whole process, and it's always one person's kind of, I suppose, ideology through which they filter to base brands on how sustainable they are. So I think it's a good stepping forward, but I would also look at several platforms just to compare. And I think it's really good that they keep mentioning new brands and you can apply to be included on there. But the way they rate sustainability, I don't agree with all the points. And yeah, just look at other resources like the Good Trade, or I often write about other designer brands on my website that are worth looking at. So yeah, it's a good step, I would say,
Okay.
definitely.
And so what do you don't agree with the good on you?
So they mark it down if you use wool, for example. My specialty is design with knitwear for my bachelor's degree, and I actually was using natural silk and cashmere and wool over buying acrylic silk because to me anything that's made from crude oil is inevitably much more harmful than using something natural that the earth offers us from the surface, because crude oil, for example, is pumped up 2,500 kilometers below the earth. And to me, I don't understand why we need to destroy kind of the earth's matter and not just take what's available from us from the earth's surface, like foraging. For example, you have your seasonal fruits that grow, so just collect materials seasonally. um, and I don't agree the fact that they also mark you down if you use natural fur over fake fur, because again, fake fur is made from crude oil, it's much harder to color, it releases microplastic particles, it wears away much quicker. And I think we should also use only what nature offers and not demand more. The problem right now, really, in fast fashion is you're pushing nature to produce more than is natural. If you just took everything as is available, that's what kind of we're working towards, and also use natural colors that they come in. For example, cotton can be in ecru, it can be in light blue, light green, light brown. We can work with those colors without, decolorizing it and bleaching it white, for example.
Mhm. Yeah, but so I probably wouldn't agree with you about the use of the fur and leather and other, which are natural materials, but which are related to animal cruelty, and also raising the animals like cows that or other animals that will give their leather afterwards. Well, it relates to indeed first the animal cruelty of raising these animals and killing them, but the second, agriculture leaves also quite significant impact on the environment with the carbon emissions, but also water waste, etc. So then it doesn't necessarily make the fashion more sustainable, even if you use natural materials.
I agree with you. I think the animal cruelty factor needs to be addressed because it's possible to grow and farm animals with respect. And also, I was sponsored by Saga Furs for my final collection at St. Martin's, and I had the privilege to learn in a studio in Copenhagen about the process. And realistically, to buy a good quality fur, the animal has to have good nutrition. They have to have their own space to not fight with the other animals, and they have to lead a good life. Because if you just compare animals to ourselves, if we're stressed, if we have bad nutrition, our skin's not gonna look so good, our hair is gonna fall out. So to have a good coat, you have to look after the animal, just like you're buying organic, free range meat or free range eggs. It's understanding that you have to respect nature and respect their life.
Okay. And so you already mentioned some of your colleagues, not colleagues, classmates, and the degree that you earned relatively recently. So, and your colleagues are also classmates in the sustainability. So, and I was interested in knowing, was it a general movement of people of your age in fashion, students in fashion, being interested in sustainable fashion? Or are you just few who are particularly interested? And did you have special courses on sustainable fashion? Was there enough material knowledge that was shared with you, or did you have to learn it by yourself because you were interested in it?
I would say the short answer is no. At the time when I was studying sustainability, it was not really heard about. But
When was it?
so I graduated in 2014.
Okay,
Yeah, so it's
so eight
really
years
a thing.
ago it was not yet in the curriculum.
Not in the curriculum, no. But I did see an advert to apply to do a summer course about sustainable fashion and innovation at the university in Copenhagen, KEA, and I was selected there with two of my other classmates to attend a summer 3-week program. And they invited students from different universities from Europe and provided us with amazing learning opportunity. And actually, this was the pivotal point where I understood what sustainability is and what things we should avoid. And that's kind of the foundations for Maison Magenta is from that short course. Ultimately, when you're making a fashion collection as a student, all the fabrics are so expensive. A lot of people were knitting with acrylic yarn because when you have to create about 20 garments, you cannot afford to buy pure wool or pure cashmere or cotton. So when you're a student, you can't necessarily afford to work in a sustainable way, A, and B, you don't understand the consequences of choosing a polyester fabric over a natural one. But I think now they are definitely teaching this more and more, and I have followed what they're doing, and they are kind of making it important to learn about natural materials and local production and fair wages. So it's definitely moving towards that.
Mm-hmm. And is there any discussion, or maybe you think, if fashion can be circular? So, there is this circular economy approach. So can fashion be circular? And can we use the available materials from maybe other industries, or also from fashion, the clothes that can be thrown away? So we use them to produce new designs, new clothes. So
Yes, absolutely. I mean, circular just means not linear of producing, use, and throw away. So, circular means to reuse, to reappropriate, to upcycle, recycle if you ultimately cannot do the other things. So, for example, at the moment, for a bespoke jacket I'm making for a client, she had this fabric lying around for a decade, I think, and she came to me and she said, for years I've wanted something made from this fabric. I don't know what, but I bought it. Can you design something? And for the lining, she brought me two different types of silk lining to use. So I'm also using the salvage materials she has. But this is not something a mass market brand can afford because it takes more time for me to cut out different pattern blocks from two different fabrics instead of from one lining, it's cutting out twice as much. But for me, it's important to have zero waste. So I will do this sort of projects. But it's totally possible. There are brands like Bean London, who is an accessories brand, who upcycle, for example, DHL posters and Formula One posters, which are like printed for one-time use, but very sturdy, hard fabric. So you can have a look at them, and they buy all the off-cut leathers from brands that don't have a purpose for them anymore and make new bags from it. So it's definitely possible. I mean, we all live in a circular kind of mindset, even if we don't realize. We all have jewelry that we have passed on to or had passed on from our relatives. Furniture we may pass on, paintings we may pass on. It's just clothes seem to have less of a value. Um, Probably because we wear them more often, and they deteriorate easier in comparison to metal jewelry. But it is in place, really. If you have expensive clothes, you will pass them on. Like I I know you don't like fur, but my grandmother passed me her fur coat, which my mom bought for her from somebody else. So it's already had three pass me downs, and a fake fur won't last those decades. It gets worn out very quickly, and there is an environmental damage that, in my opinion, is greater than the creation of this coat in the natural color the animal is in. So yeah, it is circular fashion is absolutely possible. It's just it needs to be increased.
Mhm.
And also, finally, I buy old curtains and old bed sheets to make the prototypes, the toiles from charity shops. So I know a lot of people are switching to that now, because for me, I don't see the point in making something that's a prototype from a virgin fabric, as initially you're told to use calico, which is a cotton. So there are little tweaks you can do that gradually make a difference to get them.
Mhm. Very interesting. And can you give me some practical examples, actually, to me, but also to the listeners, about how to do upcycling? Some ideas that everybody can do at home.
Yes. So first of all, look in your wardrobe, look for everything you have and organize it. So from what you wear all the time to what you don't wear. And with the items you don't wear, trousers, for example, are easy. You can cut them down into three-quarter lengths or into shorts or into hot pants. So you just take a pair of scissors, and a rough edge is trendy for shorts, so you don't even have to sew. For something more with sewing, you can have some oversized dress or t-shirt, and you can just add darts or some pleats, and then change it to be more fitted. You can also customize, buy some badges to iron on, or some feathers to attach, or beading if you are able to use a needle. But if you're not, you can take them to an alterations place and ask them to shorten your sleeve or change the darts. Or you can also combine a few garments. For example, I changed three different men's shirts to make one, taking different details that I liked, and then I used bias tape to sew around the whole shirt to make it more of a uniform look. Or, for example, I upcycled the hat by adding some lace ribbon and marabou feathers, and it became like a very glamorous hat. So, yeah, it's possible, and definitely online there are so many great examples of how to upcycle. So, I don't think anyone should struggle. You can do some like tie dyeing at home as well, or even buying a dye-on dye at a fabric shop and putting it in your washing machine with a fabric. It has to be natural to take the dye usually, so like a linen or a hemp or cotton. You can dye your jeans again a different color. These are things you can definitely do yourself at home.
Mhm. Thank you for this. So now, going back to you, I will start with the question. Can you tell me about the dress or something that you are wearing yourself now? Because I think it looks beautiful, and I'm sure there is a story behind it.
Oh, thank you. So I'm wearing a kimono. This is like the shorter version, but I have a full length one as well. So this started as an idea. I went to an exhibition, and I always loved kimonos, and I've been wanting to make some that are much lighter than the traditional kimonos you can buy, which is what I started off. I bought a kimono in a vintage shop in London called Blitz. It's in East London, Brick Lane, and I love the feeling of this fabric. There's so much fabric, but it feels very easy to wear. And I wanted to recreate something, but with a lighter silk to make it even easier to wear. And I was sourcing the right color for a few months actually. First, I pattern cut exactly what I wanted. I knew I wanted two lengths, and the kind of belt I wanted. I was researching and the length of sleeves. And then when I found the fabric, also I had to find a local seamstress. So the process is quite long and it takes 5 meters of silk and quite a long amount of hours to make. But now this is my new favorite piece because you can wear it easily as loungewear, as summer outfit over a garment, or to the beach, or in the evening to add some extra glamour to your outfit. So it's really important for me to create versatile items and also ones that are quite easy to transport to change an outfit, for example.
Yeah, I like really this part that the same garment can be used in so many different ways. This really gives it this multiplicity and the reusable idea.
Thank you. That's really important and the kind of a core design for me. Anytime someone asks to design a bespoke item for a specific occasion, like it can be for a wedding, I will always ask, when do you want to wear it again after the wedding? And then try to design something, maybe it's just changing the dress into a cocktail dress or having a removable train or having pockets. So for me, it's really important to design something that has um, a plan to be worn multiple times, but also has the option to be changed later through upcycling.
Yeah, beautiful. And so tell me, please, why sustainability is so important for you? And
Uh,
what is your sustainability story when it started?
well, I mean, I've always been kind of brought up with this outlook. I didn't know the name for it growing up, sustainability, but I am from St. Petersburg, so my grandmother was always collecting like eggshells to fertilize the soil or coffee to fertilize the tomatoes. So I grew up understanding that food is not waste but can be used afterwards to fertilize the earth to grow your own crops. And as I said, my family also has like sensitive skin, so I understood that, for example, cashmere is less irritating than wool. Wool can be itchy, and so you have to understand why is it like this reaction with our skin. And also, the final push after this course I did at Kea was when my health actually crashed. So I had chronic fatigue syndrome, which limited my hours physically to 3 hours a day I could work. And mentally, if I have pushed myself beyond that, I would feel like when one is walking on cracking ice, that's what I would feel in my head. So I'd have to lie down and recuperate. And I took 1 year out of the fashion industry after overworking in Paris for another fashion brand, and started to build my label more consciously and more in harmony with my own body to sustain my health, my timetable, and also that's why I have a sustainable label, because sustainability really means it's not just exclusively for fashion. It's to sustain, to continue for a long time with as little pollution as possible, as little harm as possible. So that's my sustainability story, because I overworked, and this happens quite often actually in the fashion industry. When I asked to have Wednesdays off, to just work 4 days, but to the 5 day hours, my contract just wasn't renewed afterwards. And I was told, maybe you shouldn't work in fashion if you are disabled and you can't work full time because you are expected to work overtime. And as much as that crushed me in that moment, it also pushed me to start my own brand. And just don't think about how difficult it's going to be. Just think you can make a change. That's what kind of fueled me to work in this way, to show people who have especially a disability, do not give up. It will be hard, of course, but there's no change without difficulty.
Yeah, I think it's really amazing story because it shows how you can combine your passion. So in your case, for fashion, where you can, well, you have a certain disability or some limitations that you cannot continue this standard path, which is, let's say, a fast path, right? Because you have to work a lot of hours, but you can find your own way to still continue what you like, and in a very sustainable way, in a very respectful way for your health, but also for the nature, because because in this case it matters for you. So, and I think it
Yeah,
can
thank you.
inspire many people.
Well, I had no choice, because having spent a whole year afterwards in bed, so there were days I was only awake for maybe 2, 3 hours. This was the reality. And I was actually very scared, because I thought I've been always a high achiever and always been able to excel at whatever I put my energy towards. I just thought, who is going to hire me with this work capability? So it's really with perseverance to carry on that this company kind of was born. And I hope I will get more support with it, because it is hard actually to do many things yourself, especially when you are limited physically, but mentally you want to do more.
Yeah, I wish you all the best with your company and with the progress. And I think your story resonates a lot with the slow fashion that you advocate, because it's even probably not slow. It's just being in line with the nature. It's slowing down ourselves from the fast and dynamic life that we're having now, being in fashion or at work in other sectors. And I think it's an important movement of slowing us down and enjoying the life, and not of just achieving, having more, and doing more, etc. So,
Absolutely, I agree with you. I think my new learn lifestyle could benefit a lot of people. I see actually a lot of people overdoing things and being scared to take the time off. I mean, I recently met a great, inspiring woman who said, for the first time, I'm going on holiday and I'm writing to everyone that I will be off for this week and not replying to anyone. I mean, yeah, you have to take time out and on holiday, especially just to be on holiday. That's the whole idea. But in a way, this working from home, working remotely, sometimes people find it harder to disconnect, because they can take their laptop with them and work from the beach, or work from wherever they're traveling to. So it's important to remind yourself that with slower pace of life, it's just about respecting your body cycle as well, because you need to step away from working to live and enjoy work and what other things life has to offer.
yeah, absolutely. And so let me ask you the last question that I ask all my guests. What are the two most inspiring books?
Okay, so I have them here. So, Ways of Seeing, John Berger, is an incredible book I read at St. Martin's, and I bought this book again because it changes your perspective. And the other one is The Language of Fashion by Roland Barthes. So they're both really great if you want to learn not just about fashion like the other one, but ways of seeing, just look at what you see, your surface design, how you perceive things, why you understand some things easier and others are harder to understand. So like the Magritte painting, where it's Le Pipe, the smoking pipe. How does language affect our understanding when it's with a picture? So I would recommend these two books.
Thank you very much, Anastasia. And I think that was a very interesting conversation. And there were many inspiring ideas. And I wish you all the best with your business, with Maison Magenta, and with your health. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dilara. Hope to see you soon. Bye.
Bye-bye.